Man, what's up, Topher? How you doing, brother?
Good man. Are you going by Carson? Is it what I'm call you tonight?
Yeah, you could just call me Carson, man. Like, you could just call me Carson. We know each other for a little bit, uh, so I'm just happy for you to be on the talk with us, especially considering all the things that you've done thus far, maintaining that humble spirit and approachable spirit. So I really just appreciate that, man. It's good to have you.
Yes, sir. I think when you reached out, I said, "Bro, it's nothing but a conversation. Let's have it." I always tell people, knowledge is only power when you share it. So we got to get the information out there, and then let people do with it what they will, and see what happens.
That's what's up, man. That's what's up. So this is kind of like Theo Talk is pretty much something that we started doing during the pandemic, where we just get on and kind of free talk. We'll have a topic, but it's more so just like supposed to be a flowing conversation and things like that. But I wanted this one to be a little bit more structured because I think uh, there's some specific things that I wanted to address with you and let
Okay.
people hear your thoughts. And so that's pretty much kind of what the platform is about. Again, I'm just sort of using this. So this will be my first time kind of using this mode of uh, technology. So just bear with me on that. Um, and yeah, so let's get into it, man. Let's get into it. First and foremost, tell us a little bit about, um, just tell us a little bit about you, a little bit about your story.
I'm the greatest rapper alive, top 5 all time.
Get it.
No, man. I feel like every rapper comes on the mic and has to say that. Like you gotta say you're the greatest rapper ever. You can't just be a rapper. You gotta be the greatest ever when you introduce yourself. No, guys. Grew up. My name's Topher. Comes from my full name, Christopher. I grew up in Kilmichael, Mississippi. Graduated from Montgomery County High School. Graduation class of 22 people. So when I say I understand what it feels like to go to a school with lacking resources and opportunities, trust me, you can't get more uh uh desolate than Kilmichael, Mississippi when it comes to education and just jobs.
Hmm.
And I ended up going to Mississippi State University. I first started off with a scholarship for the STEM program, which was called Bridge Program, and I was there with electrical engineering for the summer. Found out real fast that just wasn't my interest because I did not like calculus like that. So I ended up switching to marketing. Not too long after that, I ended up joining the military, where I met Carson
Yeah,
here.
that's where we met. Yeah.
Joined the military, got married. Now I got 2 daughters, and left the military and pursued music full time. But I've
Hmm.
been writing and doing music since I was 10 years old.
That's
Uh,
what I'm about to say because when we met in the military, you had already been doing music and expressing yourself and through your art. And so, what was sort of that tension, that journey coming out of the military? Because we know the military is stable. You got things they tell you when to wake up, go to the gym, and you know everything is kind of stable. Everything is situated for you. Those disciplines become habit and routine. So, what was that move for you from the structure of the military to say, you know what, I'm really finna do music full time?
Uh, Real quick, I just want to give a quick shout out to my pastor, Michael Mitchell, who's pastoring over Restoration Ministries International Christian Fellowship down in Augusta, Georgia. He was one of the people that helped build my faith to the point where I felt like Abraham, that I could go out, leave my family, leave those steady places of resources, just follow what God has for me. And one of those things was the pursuit of music. I tell people I had a stint in my life where I gave up music completely. I really thought God didn't want me to make any music. So when I
Hmm.
got busy doing that, hold on, one second. I know your iPad. Can you go back in there? Go give it to your mom. And MJ, can you shut the door? They ignore me. But yeah, man. So I had a stint in the military um where I gave up music completely because I felt like God didn't want me to do it because of the lack of success. They said you would know them by their fruit. So I felt like I
Mhm.
wasn't getting any fruit. Therefore, this is not something that was in my path. But it was more so because of the lack of business knowledge, right? We talk about music. Music is 80% business when it was in creativity and art and
Wow.
artists, So once I learned the business side, that's what allowed me to start to see that progress that I was missing, that I thought, wasn't for me. And but during that time I learned, because one of the biggest moments that made me realize that I could do this was, we did the language day,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
we were
yeah.
singing hallelujah, and they wanted me to rap in Hebrew. First of all, and I want to say I was the first person to rap in the language they were learning. That is historic. But we remember when I did it and everybody was standing on their feet and they was having a good time, it showed me that if I was able to entertain them and they didn't know what I was saying, how much more could I do? How much more of an impact I could have if they knew what I was saying, and I was being intentional and thoughtful
Wow.
about my words. So that helped me, continue down that path of pursuing it. But it was very difficult, man, because when I was in the military, and you tell people as you're transitioning, because you gotta go through transition, get ready out, and so what you gonna do when you get out? I said, I'm gonna do music, and everyone's looking at me sideways, like, bro, that's
Yeah, yep.
that's such a toss up career. I said, "Don't worry about it. God got me." And it's kind of like DJ Khaled. They didn't believe in me. God did. That's kind of attitude I had, man, and I thank God that I held on to it, because now I'm in a position where life is just gravy.
And that's what was that's so crazy, man, because they always talk about, this what you should and should not do when you're coming out of military. You get all that training, and the idea is that you're gonna continue in whatever field that they trained you in. And so, definitely, man, definitely. So, what was that moment where you were like, "I'm all in"? Was that before you got out of the military?
Yeah. So
So you were all in, kind of long before, or right before, or that moment on the stage in DLI, or what?
right before, I wanted to do music, but I wasn't sure if I want to get out the military. The moment that made me realize I can't stay in the military and do music was, it was right before, I think, 2016, and they had just came up with some new requirements for our career, right? So we was linguists, and in my field, we had to maintain stuff that typical airmen didn't have to do, right? So we
Mhm.
had to do more studying, but we were still kind of seeing the same amount of pay. I already thought that was crazy, but it's the military. It's what you sign up for. But they came in and then they said, on top of what we already were doing, that was going to require extra testing and more studying. And I was like, bro, I'm not going to do this. I'm already, we don't, because they would test you on your ability to use the language. But the
Mhm.
language that you used a lot of times when we was transcribing was specific to military operations. So what you was learning on the test and what you had to maintain for their sake had nothing to do with your job. And that was very irritating to me. So it's like, now I got to go out here and do something that's not related, all because y'all want me to pass the test, even though it's not interrupting my ability to do my job. So it was kind of, I was like, no, man, I'm not going to do this. It's just like, nope, I'm good. I'm gonna go do something else. And that's when I was like, but if I do change, kind of like that, Toby in Wingway, I forget how you say his name, but he talked
Okay.
about that. He said he was gonna give himself 5 years, and after 5 years, if nothing happened, he's just gonna switch it up. I kind of gave myself that time limit too. It's like, hey, you're gonna make this happen, go full time. And that's why I started working on a mixtape, trying to go to some more shows, open mics, whatever I could. Started to make a little name for myself in Augusta, Georgia, trying to help others along the way. That's why we created Create Augusta. Trying to educate people on the business side and get people around other people that's in the industry. And I've just taken those same tools that I was trying to give to fellow musicians locally, and have built myself a successful career.
Yeah. Successful is an understatement, man. You doing it. Like, you doing it. You're doing it. So, I kind of want to get into some of the more controversial elements of what you've been doing. How do you let's start here. How do you politically identify, and what led you in your life to identify this way? Politically and religiously, what informs what? Tell us about it.
I identify as conservative. I'm not married to the Republican Party, although I align myself with the Republican Party just because their platform checks more boxes than the Democrat Party for me, based on my conservatism and my religious belief. Right, I'm a Christian. I would say apostolic, so I'm apostolic Christian, and when I was in the military, we had a guy named I forget his name, Melton. You remember Specialist Melton?
I'm not sure.
He
I
was
don't think so.
Army, kind of had sandy hair.
I
Um,
don't think so.
but he was in our section, and
Okay.
we used to have debates. It all started off with like um Christian apologetics, right?
Hmm.
Frank Turk and Ravi Zacharias, and
Yeah.
we was debating just uh philosophical standpoints. It wasn't even political. It was just like he was challenging me on certain topics, and then I would just, because I've never really been challenged, it made me go do more research and really see why I believe something. Was it just because I was taught that, or because looking at all the information, this is what I concluded, and that led into more research to the 2016 election, and during the
Okay.
2016 election it came to that point like, right, I'm a grown adult. I didn't do 2012 because we was like in training, right? It was kind of
Yeah.
weird, and
Yeah.
I didn't do the absentee ballot. I didn't know how to do it, and you ain't really focused on that when you're in the military. It's like, bro, I'm just trying to make sure that I don't get cussed out by the sergeant
For sure.
doing
Yeah.
training. So I didn't vote 2012, but I did decide to vote 2016. And I wanted to vote for literally the party that had my best interest and aligned with my beliefs. It had nothing to do with the promises they was going to give. It was like, what do y'all believe, right? And when I
Hmm.
just sat Republican next to Democrat, I was like, man, I just align more with the Republican Party. Nothing against anything. And then as I grew into politics, I learned that there are green parties, there are independent parties,
Yeah.
there's this party. So, just going down a list, libertarian parties, but a lot of people don't know that because they don't get that deep into the
The
political
politics.
realm.
Yeah.
But so I've just grown from that, and like I said, now I still bank on the conservative. But when I learned that I was conservative, it wasn't because I self-identified. I was doing my TikTok live where I kind of blew up for being a political influencer or commentator, as
Hmm.
we will say on TikTok. A lot of my followers kept saying conservative, you're conservative, and I kept seeing that word pop up, and I was like, conservative, what is conservative, right? And
Hmm.
so I went and looked up the definition, and it's like, yo, conservative is a person that believes in traditionalism, patriotism, self-sufficiency, social and culturally conservative, to where you lead your life by your religious values, which in us is Christianity. I was like, yeah, that's me. That's that pretty much sums up what I do, and where I draw a lot of my beliefs from and make my choices from. So it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't something that someone just said, it wasn't something I just ran into. It was someone said the idea, I looked into it, and ever since then, I've just been identified as conservative.
Yeah. So it was more so you were commentating, and then people started to tell you that you fit within this mode of being conservative.
Yeah.
That am I hearing that right? So, I mean, then you get to a point where it's a pretty polarized election coming up, right? Where
Yeah.
you have this figure that everybody hates, loves to hate, and hates to love, right? Where it's a real just polarizing figure in that presidential election. What was your experience like during that time?
Oh,
Right,
we
when
talking?
you're going on Fox and Friends and you talking about
Oh,
Trump and you're actually saying like, I am I support Donald Trump. What was the society around you, right? Because you said you was from Mississippi,
yeah, yeah,
right? So
yeah, yeah.
you apostolic, so right. So, and I know your pastor from Augusta. I've met him once, so I know the context. What was the comments coming from there?
So I lost a lot of friends. I will say some of my best friends, even musically, fell out from me. It was like fallouts where they didn't send me a message and cuss me out, but they just didn't interact with me no more. It was no more text messages randomly. It was no more,
Mm,
leaving comments on my progress, right? Or whatever I was going on. Um, I had people that was turning the nose up at my wife because of what I was saying, which
Wow.
we had to have that conversation because she came to me frustrated about my outspokenness, and I was like, so you want me to hold back my what I believe in and what I need to say because of what everybody else is feeling? I said that's a no
Mm,
go. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, what if they was all atheists, right? And then now I gotta say something about Christ, but I gotta dial it back because it's offended them. It's like,
mm,
when I feel like I've been led to say something, you know, as long as I'm not like, I never understood why they were so upset,
mm.
right? To the point to where I'm not cussing nobody out. Even when I was talking about politics, it wasn't like angry rhetoric. It was just like, these are the facts, whether you want to believe them or not, these is just the facts. And I would question a lot of things, and I would just get this vitriol that I just thought wasn't deserving of what I was putting out. And
Hmm.
from being called Uncle Tom Coon, sellout, which was crazy because the same people that they were looking up to and promoting had white husbands or white wives, and I got this beautiful black lady as my wife and two beautiful black girls, and I'm in the community. It's not like I moved, not like I'm Patricia Colors
Yeah.
BLM moving to the white dominant neighborhoods. Like I live in Philadelphia, Mississippi, right here, where majority the state is black, well, not majority, but a good
A good
portion.
portion.
It's like I'm here, like I didn't abandon nobody. I'm doing what I'm doing, and I'm showing y'all how, it was just weird, man, just weird to see that happening. Until this day it still kind of happens that way.
Wow.
And that's why I realized that this was more than just politics. This is like a spiritual stronghold that is going on, and I'm seeing on people because they have been so invented with like fear,
Hmm.
right? Fear that even if cognitive dissonance is a thing, and I'm sure
Yeah.
people will experience it on both sides, but that's why I try to, as much as possible, stick to the facts and stick to the truth, because if you don't, then you will kind of dig your heels in and get stuck on your beliefs and don't want to change no matter what is presented to you.
Yeah.
um and I don't want to really get to that point because it doesn't do anything, doesn't help, so when I realized that, it made me understand that this was going to be a long battle.
Hmm.
This wasn't going to be a battle that's won over a debate. This wasn't going to be a battle that's won over social media. It's just one that we're going to have to win a heart day by day, right? Within the
Day by day.
communities.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just day by day within the communities, and just going from there. And I've slowly been seeing that progress because when you fighting against, freaking what's it called, Goober National media company where they can really paint whatever they want, censor whatever they want, and feed people whatever they want, to keep that power and control them. I mean, it's just really hard for you when you get your 1 minute videos out there compared to everything they're seeing on a daily basis. It's just tough, man. So my expectations are very scaled to a point, right? It's like I
Hmm.
expect to continue to receive those remarks. Um, but I'm going to continue to work because I'm starting to see people turn around, and even if they don't hate me so much, but they're willing to still have the conversation.
I think that's part of it. It's this willingness to have the conversation, and the other part, what you said that I think rings true is it was a fear, and I think it's still that cloud of fear, right? Because one of the fears is, you know, if I'm conservative, then I'm racist.
Yeah.
Like is being
Mm.
racist and white separatism has been kind of conjoined with that idea, and that was what surrounded everything that was happening during that election and the most recent election was this racial dialogue. And recently there's been a lot of things that happen, a lot of money lost based on certain things said from hip hop icons and basketball players. And so when you think about how you use your platform to make these statements to influence, um, do you think people like Kanye West and Kyrie Irving have been using their platform properly?
Well, you got it depends how you look at it, right? Because I've seen all the way up to the presidency support BLM and their riots and burning down cities and destroying property. So, but they haven't been banned. No companies have disassociated with them because of this rhetoric, right? So, what is really dangerous? Kanye and Ye is his name now. Ye and Kyrie have never called for violence. They've called for questions. They've called for answers, and which I think is appropriate, especially given what's going on, right? Um, what I and the funny thing is, I kind of saw the same feedback from my audience when I sided with Jay in his questioning because that's what it do. I was like, yeah, the industry is controlled, dominated by CEOs who are Jewish. And I want to know why, because it's like you can't say kike without being banned, but you can say nigga. It's like,
Mm,
so they protecting one race, but not protecting the dignity and lives of another race. So their race their religion or whatever has something to do with it. You know what I'm saying?
mm,
And you can't say that, oh, it's all about the money because black people support it. I'm like, I'm pretty sure there's some racist Jews that racist people who are anti-Semitic, truly anti-Semitic, that would love to purchase music like going out to Jews. But you don't even give people that option because they are protected. And so
mm,
that's what I'm trying to say is, okay, it matters because we're seeing the results of what's going on. We're seeing the media companies ban these. We're seeing the merchandise companies, Adidas, everything. First of all, Adidas having audacity to even ban Kanye and terminate a contract when y'all was literally Nazis is hilarious to me.
yeah, that's probably what stimulated it. They're like, okay, we cannot be, we we can't allow people to remember this. Like we
Right.
got to move away from this. But the one thing that you said that I think, regardless of your political side, is that there is this. It's some races you can talk about, and it's some races that you can't. And I think what is often missed is that anti-Semitic people are more than just Jewish, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Muslims will be considered Semitic as well. And
Oh,
people,
you can't say that, Carson, because that's anti-Semitic.
well, that's the truth.
It's the
That's if
truth.
we're talking about regionally, if we're
Right.
talking about regionally, right? So regionally, you have other groups that hate speech has been said against them, and negative things have constantly been said against black folk in America, and nobody's, like you said, you put it really plainly, right? So that there is this sort of weird aura around what's going on. But I think it brings us to another question, and this can kind of segue into more Christian conversation. But how do you appreciate art if you reject the artist, or should you? Right? We live in a culture where people being canceled left and right, and you have the ability to listen to who you want to listen to. Right? That's your freedom. But can can you listen to someone, support someone and their art if you don't support them as a figure, politically or socially or religiously?
Absolutely. The best example I can give is gospel music. We sing about the Lord, sing about the praises and what we should walk and how we should walk, but half of the people singing it don't do the walk. We
Hmm.
fail all the time, right? So if we, but that hasn't stopped us from listening to gospel music because we understand the message is what's the most important part, and not the person behind it. Because if that's the case, then the Bible wouldn't be wouldn't be here, right? Because I mean,
Hmm.
Peter, Paul, we could talk about Paul, we could talk about all these people that despite the bad decisions and actions they had, it didn't change the impact of their words and then what God was doing through them. So I would say we I would say use caution, right? I would say take it case by case basis. What Kanye said, what Ye said to me is not worthy of being banned. Um, he didn't really say, once again, he really didn't say anything. And people that feel that way That's their opinion, right? That's just their opinion. But no one, I don't see nobody marching down the streets lining Jewish people up and going death come three on that. It's just not happening. And the fact that they're allowed to go to such an extreme is the issue. Because if anybody could go to such an extreme, it should be black people in America. But I don't even afford us the
You said
ability.
it. I did it.
I don't even afford us the ability to do that. And
Yeah.
that's why I'm saying is because I don't sit back and be like, hey, black man, you know your ancestors were disenfranchised, so you can't. That's why you ain't able to do much, and you should blame the government. I don't let us do that. So if I'm not gonna let us do that, why do we allow people when the Holocaust even happened in America? Like their
Hmm.
oppression was really overseas. It had nothing to do with America. Our trial and tribulation was here. And in certain parts of the country, you may still see some stuff. Especially in democratic cities. I'm not trying to be political, but just want to throw that out there. But we still see some stuff going down, and that's why, when people talk to me and some of my friends and they sit down and actually hear where I'm coming from, they're like, okay, Topher's actually making sense. It's not like he's just conservative because he's a token black guy and he's just parroting information. It's like I really lived that life and I've seen um the issues with the government and not having power. One of the biggest revelations I've had this year or within the last year or two was that we've been taught to hate Malcolm X and love Martin Luther King, but actually Malcolm X was the right person and Martin Luther King was the wrong person.
Say some more about that. Say,
And the reason,
please say some more about that. That's strong. I mean, you said a lot of strong stuff, but that's really strong. Say some more about that.
so for instance, we can go back to that time, because even in the history books, and all in person we talk about MLK, they don't talk about Malcolm X. And what's interesting is Martin Luther King was even killed by someone within his circle. He was assassinated by the government. Malcolm X was killed within his circle. And that to me is kind of like even today. Think about our most iconic people. Are they killed by the government today?
I don't know.
Some
No,
of our
I don't
iconic
think so. Yeah,
influences have been killed by people
by
within
our
their circle,
people. Yeah,
by our
yeah,
own people. So it's like that same thing
especially
is
in the
going
hip
on.
hop community.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. But when I was looking back at it, I felt when Malcolm X called, Don Martin Luther King, he used to call him Uncle Tom too, right? That's what he used to call him. But I thought Martin Luther King had it right. He was like, no, Martin Luther King was like, we're gonna get these civil rights, we're gonna march, and he helped get all the stuff that we needed to this day. But then, as I've been sitting back and realizing the words, Martin Luther King never said really what Malcolm X said. Malcolm X said, I remember he said this, and we don't talk about this much. They always talk about, get it by any means necessary, right? By any means necessary is
Yeah.
most thing they quote from Malcolm X. But he used to say stuff that now I look back, it's like, man, this dude's a genius. When he talked about the liberals, right? He's like, man, conservatives or whatever, I can deal with them. You know what I'm saying? But it's the liberals, the wolves in sheep clothing,
Hmm.
that we have to worry about. That no, Fox called him a fox for the most part. He was like, they come in, and we see it today, right? We align ourselves with the Democrats who are liberals, but they're the main ones hurting us. When you just look at from policies down to cities, I can't
Hmm.
express that enough. But when Malcolm X talked about white people not giving us jobs and we was being disenfranchised and stuff, he said, why don't we just build our own stuff? He said, he basically was saying, like, why you mad at the white man for hiring people that look like him when he came to this country and built something for himself? I said, we can go do the same thing. And that's the
Hmm.
tip I've been on. It's like, you see what happened in Yay. But that's why I think it's great that it happened in Yay, because it emphasized the point that we need our own power. We need our own
Hmm.
structure. We need our own businesses. We need our own parallel economy. We need to break away from people that don't respect us. Right.
Wow.
Once we break away
Yeah.
from people that don't respect us, then they got no choice but to respect us. Right. Um, and then Martin Luther King, we thought that he was like, boycotting companies just so they can change rules to invite you back in. That's the trick we get done all the time today. It's like
Mm.
nothing really changed. You kind of like hurt them a little bit, made them apologize, but you still giving money to some people that don't care about you.
Wow.
So it's cool that Martin Luther King was doing it, but it's not the answer, right? And I feel like the answer was more coming from Malcolm X, and what we talk about. Like, the more I looked into Martin Luther King, if you haven't, I say go watch the documentary Uncle Tom 2. Really great documentary my brother Chad put together. And it just kind of shows the socialist Marxist movement that infiltrated the black community and the black church. And if you just want to see it from a great perspective, it's a great documentary. But that's when I saw the same Marxist traits that Martin Luther King started to express that we see today. So when I started looking through history through a more broad lens versus what I've been, you know, told to focus on throughout school and everything else, I just started to see a difference in other people. I was like, man, because I've been a Booker T. Washington School of Thought person for the longest, right?
Hmm.
Versus W.E. Du Bois. W.E. Du Bois is like, we need representation. That's all we need. We need representation. We need people in power, and things will change. Booker T was like, no, bro, we just need to work hard, gain respect through what we build and how we contribute to society, and then things would change because people will respect you, and then they'll want to work with you. So we trying to get respect without earning it, right? It's kind of like we want to demand respect. Today, I see a lot of people that's like, man, we black people and what we went through, and now we want to demand stuff. It's like, no, that's not going to get us anywhere. And if anything, even if we get it, it come with a sour taste, and it's going to leave some ripple effects. But when you just do stuff and you just excellent, it's like you get that respect that it's going to be long lasting. That type of respect that you can pass down to your grandchildren. That's the type of respect that I'm trying to gain as I do what I do. With my music and
Wow.
just with the podcast and everything. So
Man, honestly, that's a different side. I did not expect to hear how Malcolm X has influenced you. I didn't. I didn't. I think a lot of people will be surprised about that influence, the connections that you're making there. Um, and I think when it comes to the issue, because I think we do have to be balanced in what's going on with the anti-Semitism. I think the problem, at least with Kyrie, was the association with black Hebrew Israelites, right?
mhm.
When the Hebrew root, kind of that mythic, you know, all African Americans come from Israel. I think that was that those statements are associated with that group, which in some variations is a hate group. In other
Yeah,
variations, there are people who identify as Hebrew Israelites that are not a hate group and welcome everyone, and kind of it's more a callback to their their understanding of Hebraic culture, so to speak. But there
yeah.
is a way in which some have used very hateful rhetoric and become dominant. So I think it's that association and maybe some of the sound bites that cloud the understanding of can we what are you saying, Jay? Like you say a lot of crazy stuff anyway. What are you saying, Kyrie? Even though Kyrie didn't actually say anything, he just posted
Facts.
something that's already on Amazon Prime, right? So Amazon Prime can make money. He can't make a post. That's not a here or there. Um, let's move. Let's switch gears a little bit. We talked about politics. We talked about kind of your views and all of that. Do you understand what you do, the music that you make, your art, as ministry? Is this a form of ministry? Is this, you believe, like a calling, or is it more so something just you're passionate about and you see as something different? How do you
No,
view it?
I see it as a calling. Definitely a ministry. I've been prophesied over saying I have the spirit of evangelism, which I think I do just because of how I move, how I operate, and I would say so. I mean, everything I've done, I've kept God at the center of it, and I try to honor Him and give Him, the praise and glory for everything, for every achievement, for every stream. I've never shied away from that fact. I've never wrote a song and said, I might not say nothing about God because it may offend some people. I've never done that. I feel like the blessing I've been able to have throughout this is being authentic. It's not many people that can say that they are authentically themselves and people still love them and still people rock with them. And I feel like that's what led to such a strong support base for my music and what I do, because it is who I am. I don't have to. Um, when I talk about patriotism, I'm a patriot. I'm patriot hard. What I got going on, it's no faking the funk here. And I feel like I've seen so many other artists within our lane start to fall off, and then they blame everybody else but themselves. But that was because they adopted the darkness. I was born in
Mm.
it, as they say, and so they adopted it to profit from it and to kind of, catapult themselves to the top. And when they realized that it takes more steam than that, because it's one thing to get there. The real challenge of anything is to maintain it, right? It's
Mm.
easy to get married. You go down to the courthouse, but to maintain that marriage, or it's easy to have a kid, but to maintain support for that kid for 18 years to become an
Yeah.
adult, those are the hard stuff. And I feel like the more fake you are, the less likely you are to succeed and maintain that success. So I would say, based on some of the testimonies I received from people, the conversations people can have around my music that have opened up, um, that that room for discourse. Because before, I feel like you said earlier, when people think of conservatives, it's the stereotype is old white Christian tight suit male, right?
Yeah.
It's never
Yeah.
been.
That's what they think about.
That's what they think, But
Not
now,
a black dude from Mississippi who's influenced by Malcolm X. That's not what you think about. What you think about conservatives.
or rocking a beanie and t-shirts. Like I don't wear suits. I'm very chill. I got, obviously you see my hoodie collection on the wall over there. Like I'm I'm me, and that's why I always wanted to be on Fox News. What was I wearing? Was I wearing a suit?
No, you was not wearing you weren't wearing a suit.
I was
You
being me.
stay true to who you are, man. And that's it.
Who?
I respect that more than really if someone can do what you've been doing and just remain true to who they are. The same Chris that I met in the military is the same one I'm talking to here. I think that says a lot, especially considering all the things that you've experienced and the scrutiny that one is under for taking some of the stands that you have. Um, and so, even though there's some areas where I would disagree, it's nothing but respect that can come from that because I mean you've been in the fire and you continue to keep doing doing for the community. So that's great. I want to pose this question to you. You said that it's a ministry. What what is the message, if there is one, that's like you can say generally you're wanting to proclaim through your music, and that can be as specific as general as you want.
I would say, um, one, no, self accountability and reliance on God is the answer and key to whatever you're trying to achieve in life, right? And two, America is a great place, despite what people may say about it, and despite how um it's been taught to you. You know, the opportunity here is unlike any other place, especially when you put it in perspective. Like, there's no other country in the world where you can point to with a diverse religion, diverse race, as many. We got over 350 million people, all close to it, about 350 million people here in the U.S. And we have what we have, like no other country. And I remember I was listening to some interview, and the guy said name another country, and the chick started to name only European countries. She didn't
Hmm.
name any African countries or Chinese countries. And then he was like, interesting that you name European countries because they're like 99% white. It's like, so, you know, I think for what we've done, and the reason why people try to cross the border all the time, and try to catch planes, and get on boats and try to get here, is because we do have the Constitution, we do have those rights, and I just want to make sure that people are aware. And
Hmm.
thirdly, I used to say representation didn't matter, but I think it do. But not for the not for the purpose that people use it as, like not as in representation as things have changed and yada 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 and we free. No, not that. But because I imagine like when we talk about fatherless homes, like we need to see more black men being leaders, being involved with their kids, loving their
Yeah.
wives, being faithful, sticking to those values, working hard, speaking up, standing on their beliefs, fighting, being just, being kind. So I like I said, I used to think representation didn't matter, but then when you think about how it's been used against us, I feel like I just want to represent a voice that typically, like you said, gets lost. Well, I'm gonna say not get lost, it just downright gets bullied, right?
Hmm.
You can't be a black kid in Chicago and walk up and be like, I like Candace Owens, because you're gonna get destroyed.
No,
You- re- am I wrong? Am I right?
that's hilarious.
Right,
Yeah, you're pretty right. I mean, I would say just generally speaking, it's hard for you to say wherever you are if you're black that you like Candace Owens. That's
right.
hilarious.
And
Yeah,
that's my sis, and like you said, we don't have to agree on everything, guys.
yeah,
And that's
yeah.
why I think people got to realize is like, because at the end of the day, when you look at who she is, what she is, she's got a husband, she's got some beautiful kids, she's taking care of her family, she ain't out causing violence to nobody. She's helping with the Black Foundation, she's helping communities, trying to help educate black. It's like, sure, you don't agree on certain things, but I'm more of a person that's, let's look at the fruit of stuff. All right, let's look at what's going on. Because you could talk about, man, yeah, young Dolph, or I won't say young Dolph because how Memphis people crazy. They might come down to Mississippi. Let's just talk let's talk about Lil Durk. How about that? Lil Durk, they can stay up there. Lil Durk, for example, yeah, he may do some stuff here and there for the community and bless some families and stuff. But think about how many people he's poisoning with the music. Like, does it
Hmm.
really make up for what you putting out and showing? So I gotta be that person to
So
show
hold
that.
on. So you're saying just something about just hip hop generally speaking. You're talking now like there's certain people in hip hop that are putting music out that you're categorizing as poison. So what? Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I would say it was time to, that's my third as far as representation. We need to
Hmm.
hear in hip hop somebody that's not degrading women, that's not talking about selling drugs, doing drugs, that's not talking about fornicating just all neatly freely, that don't have to be um insecure about their masculinity, so they have to have women twerking around them 24/7 and money in their hands, right?
Hmm.
That's not what success is. That's just that's what's selling. That's not what success is. So yeah, we do have artists, drill music, I mean trap music. It's, the name tells you what
What it
what what
is?
it is,
Yeah.
right? Trap music, it's a trap. If you listen to this music, you're gonna be trapped. If you listen to drill music, it's about killing, and we can sit here and play dumb. I always tell people, sure, if I listen to this does not mean I'm going to go out and do everything that you hear in the song.
Unless it's
I'm
a
not saying that.
documentary on Amazon.
Right. On posting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that. But I will say this: um, the more it's just the Bible says faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. That means it has to hear, and you have to hear it, and you have to continuously be in this state of hearing, in order to build that faith.
Yeah.
And if eye ears and if our eyes and ears are the gateway to our soul, and all we doing is, because if you're not building faith, you're building fear, or you're building the opposite of faith. And so it's like the more you hear this stuff, whether you think it's impacting you or not, subliminally it is, right? Subconsciously it is
It is. Yeah. It's
impacting
shaping
you.
you. It's
It's
shaping you.
shaping you.
Yeah.
And I was reading a book called I forget the name of it, but it's about hip hop. And um basically, when you listen to music or you're in a certain area, whether it's music or not, but we always say this, we use music to set an atmosphere. We say that even in church, we're like, we
We
need to set
definitely
the
say that
atmosphere,
in
right?
church. Yeah.
Right. We need to set the atmosphere.
Yep.
Why do you need to set the atmosphere? because the atmosphere influence you, right?
I mean,
But
they do use that language in the club, but I mean, you can tell if it's a bad DJ,
it's
right?
this, it's this,
It's a good
right,
DJ, it's a bad DJ based on the music.
right,
Yeah.
right, right. But what I'm saying is, if we go back to, you just there, you can be hypnotized by lights, mesmerized by lights. You know, all these terms were created, and whether we believe it or not, they're used in areas like the clubs. That's why they have lights. That's why they have these dark scenes. This is all intentional.
Yeah.
So think about this: if you're in a club and the lights are on, what are people doing?
They ain't doing what they doing with the lights off. It ain't the same sort of club scene. I can tell you that.
so so that's what I'm saying. Like, it's whether we admit it or not, there are people that are in the business of making money that study these things and have the research done on these things and understand that it's powerful influences from setting the atmosphere. And when you set an
Hmm.
atmosphere, if you sit in that atmosphere for a long enough time, it becomes a climate. And then when it becomes a climate for a long enough time, it becomes a stronghold. And that's what we have. And we're seeing that because of the constant atmosphere of this music, it has created strongholds on a generation, or a certain portion of the black community or white community, whatever, just our nation, that is negatively impacting the youth, and negatively impacting our adults, our ethics, our beliefs, our values. And I have to counter act that. I have to put something into the atmosphere that can show I don't have to do any of the music or do any of that crazy stuff in order to have a life of success and to live the life that we want. You know, we have to show that. Like, when I had a kid dress up for me for who you want to be when you grow up, he wanted to be a rapper, and he
Hmm.
decided to be Topher, right? Topher is an inspiration. That to me is worth my weight in gold. It's
And
like,
that's what you in it for. That's
that's
what
what
you're
I'm
trying
in
to
it for.
do. You're
It's
trying to
like,
influence and to bring this other voice to music, to hip hop, to what you do. And I think that that's regardless of the controversy that comes around you based on your views. I think that that's extremely important. Like, and I think that it's important to the culture to recognize that we're all not the same. We all don't have the same views. It's not just listen to the other side, listen to someone you disagree with. You might find out that they're actually influenced by Malcolm X, right? So their influence is Malcolm X, all right? So that says something to those who know who Malcolm X is, right? You cannot, I don't think you can be called Uncle Tom if you like Malcolm X. That might need to be just a general rule. But um it's good to hear that, especially listening to your music, right? So I listen to some of the music that you put out, and you definitely can hear the positive message coming from it. You can hear the challenging political critiques coming from it, but it doesn't have to feel like praise Jesus, right?
yeah.
Like it's something that you can listen to when you're working out. You can listen to, you can pump in your car, and it doesn't have, I mean, Christian rap has gotten better, but it was a time when it was a little cheesy, right?
Yeah.
Just a little bit. So when you talk to other people in your field, do they understand you as a Christian rapper, or just a rapper that's Christian, or do you make that distinction? Or
I would say most people are quicker to label us MAGA rappers and
mm,
conservative rappers versus Christian. I think because we are so heavy within the political side, socio-political commentary, um, they won't play our music on, gospel channels. They're not gonna put us on gospel radio. They're not gonna talk about it, right?
yeah,
Um, which is fine, because what I hear on the radio don't always align with what the word says anyway. So it's like, sure, I mean, I'm not mad that you're not putting me on the radio. But I've never labeled myself, once again, before I even label myself concerned, I just what I believe.
yeah,
But I will say, if you need to label me something, at least label me correctly, because when people try to label me as MAGA, then they know what that means and how it's going to turn people off
yeah,
from what I do because they want to. It's a business, right? If you find out that this young guy over here has been successful in hip hop, and he's doing it independently, without paying for advertising, marketing, without paying for radio play, without paying. And if you look at his music videos, there's no naked women in it, and you just go and there's no cussing. There's no, you know what I'm saying. When you think about that, then you be like, what the heck you need the industry for? Why do you need to sign a deal? So I'm more than I am politically a threat to them. I am literally a business threat to them, like a model,
Mm,
because a lot of the stuff you see in music videos is because they force this on people. It's not
wow.
because people want to do this. It's like it's staged. If you talk to some of the people that's been within the industry, it's staged, and that's why I try my best to speak about these topics and get people to understand that you know certain things come with a price. I'm just not willing to pay for it. It's like I thank God every day because you know how many artists make enough money solely from streams to stay home and never do a show. It's
Mm,
not that many artists that can say that. Like I'm one of those artists. I don't never have to do a public show. I don't never have to go on tour. Most artists make their money from tour, but I don't have to do none of that. I'm not getting playlisted on any of the big playlists, even though I got millions and millions of streams. I get crazy numbers. None of that. I don't get nothing.
mm.
But God got me. And that's the most important part. And that's why I always tell people I'm not afraid to say that because literally there's no other
It's the truth.
explanation. There's
Like,
there's
it is
no
the
other
truth that you
explanation.
live. Yeah.
You Google Mississippi rapper, Topher picture right up there, top 3 or 4 every time. But I get no one in Mississippi is talking about me. No hip hop magazine is reaching out to Topher. No one's asking Topher how you do it, what's going on, all because of what I got going on. So it's like I get no love from nobody, but I'm killing the game. And what's most important is the people, right? And that's why I'm telling people, like, if you get the people, that's all that matters. And that's what Ye has, and that's why Ye is so dangerous. And that's why they're
Because
doing
he
their
got a lot
best.
of people. Yeah.
He got the people.
He got the people.
You know what I'm
So
saying?
I want to ask this. I want to ask this question. I want you to, and I want you to consider it.
Okay.
What is the most difficult critique you've heard on your views from the church? From your
Probably
your your church community, pastors, leaders, or just friends that you have? What's the and a critique that is situated in the gospel message, not just somebody's views or not just somebody's opinion on you. Just more so, have you heard a critique that says, "Hey, this is what who you're affiliated with believes. I'm having a hard time situating that with this part of the gospel."
I really so I really haven't, not to my knowledge, someone really come out to me just crazy all the time. The couple big time critiques, I think, and I don't think it's really for me. I just think for what we do in general. First thing people says, only God can judge me, right? Which is not biblical principle at all.
Yeah.
It's it's Negro spirituals. Um,
Oh man.
and people say this all the time. It's like you only God can judge me, so you can't talk about homosexuality, you can't talk about this, you can't talk about that. And it's funny that we get labeled all these transphobic, all these names and bigots. And I'm like, bro, we talk about all the sins. It's not like we just only talk about like we out here saying like, hey, you shouldn't be fornicating, you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be stealing, you should be murdering. Like, why y'all make it seem like we don't talk about none of this stuff, but we get called all those names, even though we talk about it in general. It's like, well, look, man, we're just saying that if we want to see more love, we need to get more God, because God is love. That's it. That's all. That's all we saying. And then another critique early on when I was doing a lot of the uh TikTok videos where I would put my finger up and point and talk about news articles and publications and stuff like that.
Mhm.
One of the biggest critiques was a lot of people's like, man, I don't feel the love coming from you when you talking about it, right? I'll probably use divisive language like stupid or um liberal, or just kind of how people call me MAGA, just
Yeah,
because
yeah.
stuff like that.
So
Um,
more so, those critiques would be more so like political correctness. Like you don't have the sort of, your speech is not, they're policing what you're saying or how you're
yeah,
saying what you're saying.
yeah.
Okay.
But no one has, for the most part, because murder's wrong, right? We have the right
Yeah.
to defend ourselves. No one's arguing these things with me. No one's like, when it comes to our rights as parents, like teaching kids about sexuality, like these are all things we're against. Even get down to abortion. Now, some people may argue about, but to me, I don't understand why the church is uproar about abortion. Period. Um, I feel like it's very clear, because even when it talks about the baby jumping in the womb in the Bible, when it talks about just everything to do with how the Bible called that a baby and names and stuff, it's like we know how the Bible looks at that, you know. And so I think from that perspective, people go from, they can't really argue Bible. I think they go more to how we apply the Bible. I think that's where more the critiques come in. It's like, okay, it's in the Bible, but that shouldn't apply to everybody. That shouldn't be a rule imposed on some people and this and that. So I think that's where we start to see the disconnect and I would say most of the fighting going on.
So this wouldn't be Theo talk if it wasn't just a little bit of pushback here and there, right? So I'm gonna offer this critique,
Okay.
and this my critique. There's a lot of stuff that we can talk about. We don't have time. We'll be here all night doing that. But I'm gonna situate my critique in the larger scheme of how conservative Christianity politically operates.
Okay.
And the reason why I'm going to situate it like that is because I see certain rhetoric and certain behaviors that seem more of Americanisms than what I would say will be a Christian socio-political movement. And here's the critique that I'm going to use. I'm going to use Matthew 25.
Okay.
Matthew 25. You have this image where the Son of Man comes in his glory. He's got his angels with him. He sits on his throne and he's separating the sheep from the goats. And he calls all the sheep to come um, and receive the inheritance that is the kingdom, because I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty. You gave me something to drink. I was a stranger. You invited me in. I needed clothes. You clothed me. I was sick. You looked after me. I was in prison. You came to visit me. Right.
Mhm.
And the interesting thing about the sheep and the goat is both of them asking the same question. When do we do this? In other words, there's a sort of ignorance in their activities. They don't see what they're doing as doing it to earn some sort of inheritance. This is something that, like, wait, when do we do this for you? I don't remember doing this for you. And then the answer is, well, as much as you've done this to the least of these, you did it for me. I don't see a strong political move for that. Now, even if you want to use a critique, like, I don't think the government should uh, be giving folk handouts. Even when you use that critique, or if you want to say, that's not good for the country, as a Christian in a Christian context, I don't see conservative churches making the move to really concern themselves with the least of these in any real way. And so
Mm.
that's what I would say is the biggest critique from my vantage point and from my view on that side. Now I'm not beholden to any political side either. Like I try to keep my eyes open and my ears open, and I try to uh, align myself with what I believe is in best keeping with the gospel, right? So
Yeah.
I am definitely Christian. I don't agree that all the laws in America should only be Christian-esque laws, but I do
Right.
believe that um, I do believe the gospel is true, that the God is the King of Kings, that Jesus is King of heaven and earth now. So I do, I do believe that. So that does influence my thoughts. But I don't see from that, from the conservative right Christian community. I don't see that.
I was gonna say that's a great point, man. And once again, that goes we get that all the time, right? Because of our limited government. And I think you would find this interesting. So people that want the government involved only want to force other people to do what they won't do.
Mm,
If you go to Los Angeles, California, where's the highest poverty rate? It's in California, where the supposedly we gotta look out for the minorities and marginalized communities, but they got the highest, poverty rate. And when you studies have shown that people who identify as Christian, in that realm of conservative, they volunteer more than anybody else.
mm,
They give more than anybody else. And anything you think of when it comes to charity, the problem is when we give to charity, and I do it all the time personally, is it's on an individual level. And I think that's how God intended for it to be, right? On an individual level with that impact. So what we see, where you think Christians don't or conservatives don't care about people's well-beings, about the poor, about the sick, shut in, about education, because we don't, or those in jail. One of the biggest pillars of Brexit is criminal justice reform.
mm.
Like I made a song called "Wrong Man," talking about my cousin Curtis Davis Jr., who, because of some really racist people, which once I tell people, racism is in America. It's just not the, I don't know, 100 things that's impacting Black people is not on that list. I agree with Candace. It's just not on that list. Um, and and I laugh because even in this area where we know these people are racist prosecutors and attorney and lawyers,
Hmm.
district attorneys, no one's running against them to get them out. Like a lot of these people are running unopposed. So you're just gonna keep voting in this person that's gonna continue to have that negative bias towards a certain group of people, and the cycle continues. So I tell people some of what we face is because um our own lack of effort. You know what I'm saying? It's not really lack of ability, it's just a lack of effort. But I will say, uh I believe as a conservative, we should give more on individual level, because when you look at charities and you look at actual money going toward that's been donated going toward people, I mean, excuse me, you see about what 60% of the money, right? It's not like all the money 100% going to the people. It's like you got these rich CEOs or presidents of these nonprofits making millions or making $500,000, which
Wow.
that's not the
Yeah.
purpose of the money. So we can, and definitely not given to the government, because that's the most wasteful place I've seen money go. Um, personally, personally,
Well, see,
I
the funny thing is, and I think what I'm hoping that people will hear is that some of the same motivations for why people are on either side of the aisle, the motivations are more similar,
yeah,
right? There's so there on one side of the aisle is the motivation where will be, well, we don't really need to legalize Christian character, right? That's something that you should do. You're a Christian. This is the character that you should have as a Christian. Don't try to
yeah, yeah,
legalize
morality,
pietism, right?
yeah,
And morality. So that's one critique at the right. And then what I'm hearing you say, and I just want to make sure that I'm getting this correct, is that, well, when it comes to caring for the poor and the least of these, that's a church thing. We shouldn't be dependent on the government to do what the church is supposed to do. Right.
yep.
So, what do you say to a similar motivation on both sides? That open you up to um, what do you think about that? What do you think about me connecting a similar motivation? That one side, which what I would say, a liberal Christian would say, well, the reason why I'm not trying to mandate abortion is because Christians would have Christian reasons for not doing it, whether it's legal or not. Christians will have Christian motivations for whatever they do, right? We don't need to make that everyone's motivation. And then the other side would say, well, I can say the same thing for your healthcare thing, right? Christians need to care. When they were sick, you came and cared for me. So that's what let's do that. Let's the church do that. So what do you say to make me making those connections?
I've said this, and I feel like this is the best plan. For those who want government to help out, you voluntarily give certain amount of taxes to that program. People that don't want that government help in that area, you don't get access to those resources if you don't contribute. And I feel like that is what should be the thing. Like if you want to be involved and you think that's the greatest plan, that everyone should put their money into this and that's the best way to solve stuff. Think about this. Everyone wants universal basic income or universal basic healthcare, right? I got no problem with that. If y'all want to do universal, fine by me. What my issue comes in is when you got to mandate tax everybody in order to fund that. Imagine everyone can create right now a nonprofit where everyone that wants to participate in this so-called universal healthcare can donate their tax dollars to it. You know how much money is going to run out before they even get it off the ground because no one is going to do it voluntarily? It's not going to happen.
So
That's why
we got our first question, and I want to bring it up because we've been on here for a while, so we're gonna be wrapping up soon, folks. But I want to get this is the first question that came through. It's from Nate. Remember Nate? Nate's my homie. I love Nate.
Oh yeah, Walker. What up, bro?
Yeah. So Nate said, "You don't think putting the onus to take care of the systemically poor people of society on individuals and removing the responsibility of the state to help its citizens is a backwards concept?" So he said, you don't think that putting an onus to take care of the poor of a society on individuals and removing the responsibility of the state to help its citizens is a backwards concept. What's your response to that?
How have communities prospered since the government has started dealing with taking care of the poor? Is the black community better off since we started welfare and money and giving to the families, or were we more prosperous before the government got involved with that? And if we look at true economics, no, we're worse off. And that's what the problem, because we're trying to, when I say the government get involved, the government should be in the business, and what they was designed to do is protect our constitutional rights. That's it. And then to help with infrastructure and things like that. I think that's limit to what they're gonna do. That's their jobs. Protect, military, all that stuff. When it comes to helping people, if we don't get the concept in that we need to help each other, it doesn't matter how much money you throw at a problem. If people don't have the concept, have the character to deal with these issues, one, they're going to eat away at the resources because they're not responsible, or two, they're going to waste it off on other stuff that's not really important, and three, they become dependent upon that thing, you know. And I've seen it before. If people know that regardless of how they behave and if they're in a marriage or if they stick with their baby mama, baby daddy, and make things work, that they can get a check in the mail from the government. How many marriages and relationships have been broken up because of that? Now it's like I can treat this person any way I want to be treated because it's not going to impact my future or my success or my family. And people see it as that. And I see so many people. I talk to people on a daily basis where they're just like, yeah, I'm ready to live off the government, and that's it. We see, we talk about Judaism and Jews. I mean, look in Israel. The Orthodox Jews don't serve in the military, but everybody has to serve. Matter of fact, they don't even work. Instead of going to in lieu of the military, they just go study more. They don't even work. They just live off the government, and people resent them for that. I'm pretty sure it's gonna get to a point where people gonna like, well, it's not enough jobs to go around. Then we just got to be smarter, right? We can't. We're gonna have to get back to the point where okay, it's gonna have to be grandma, grandpa, and mama, dad, and grandkids in one house, right? Or we could try to bring back some of these jobs that we're shipping overseas. You know what I mean? Jobs we're shipping overseas because the big corporations are trying to save money. Like they don't care about the poor here. They care nothing about the poor here. They don't care about what opportunities they're taking away from Americans. They just want the check, and no one cares about that. So, that's just my take on it.
So I mean, listen, I think having asking these sorts of questions allow people to hear from you in a different way, to hear a more fuller picture of your views. And I think realistically, we could have went down rabbit holes of anything and got into
Yeah,
discussions about anything. I think there is need, in my opinion, for dialogue from different sides of the aisle, and dialogue that is pointed, dialogue that doesn't have to agree at the end of that, like not an argument, but a more presentation of a view, right? So that we can understand fully before we decide to cancel someone. You still might get canceled, but at least at least now it's a better representation of who you are,
but will
right?
you admit that the cancellation or the dialogue is being prevented by one side only? Really,
I
predominantly, like
personally I
because
can't admit that. I can't admit that. The reason why I cannot admit that is because I've heard, and this is kind of my apprehension of really engaging deeply in the dialogue. I probably need to more so, is that it quickly turns to ad hominem real quickly,
okay, yeah,
whereas you know it'll be, oh, you liberals are this, or you conservatives are that, and it really turns into, I mean, people disowning their families, coming
yeah,
out of serious relationships that were life-giving because of things that they heard on the news, when they may not be able to put a face to this image of conservatism, or there's a face to this image of liberalism. And the reason why I brought up the Matthew 25 text is because, regardless of how we think, government's hands should be in it or not, I think it is proximity that's really going to create a connection to say, I can agree or disagree with that view. If I'm not proximate to an actual person that holds the view that I'm in disagreement with, there are certain elements of certain motivations, certain flesh that I'm missing, right? So I think becoming proximate to those who disagree with you, whether religiously, politically, socially, having those dialogues, engaging in those conversations, and really trying to hear, and hearing, you may still come to the conclusion that, I think you're wrong. Now I think what you're doing is harmful. Now I think what you're doing is not helpful for the community. But through the dialogue, you can come to an actual place where you can say that. I don't think that you can make these sorts of claims when you're so far away from what's actually going on, right?
yeah,
When
yeah,
when someone you're close to is dying in the system, you might have one view. When someone that's close to really wouldn't be where they are, they wouldn't be where they are now if they didn't have that ability to lean on that to help them get from where they are. So you have different life stories that you can hear around these issues that put flesh on them. When you hear people turned away from um, the ER because they don't have medical insurance, right? That's when you've experienced that. That's going to be different. It's going to bring something different to the table. When you hear that a conservative is influenced by Malcolm X and actually doesn't agree with Martin Luther King Jr. as a Christian conservative, you might say, wow, I never heard that. I never thought about it that way. So that's really what these dialogues are for, and really to kind of give a more balanced view on theological positions, political issues. Really, God is all up in this talk, right?
yeah,
Because I think that, again, some of the motivations behind what you're doing are very clearly tied to your faith, right? And the question I'll leave off on, we can close out on, is how much room in your life is there for disagreeing brothers? Let's talk about that.
I will say this. I've never once turned my phone, blocked, or cursed out a brother for disagreeing with me. I've only received that from my other fellow brothers that I thought was my brothers. I've never once. And the reason why is because I understand is we can't change nothing if no one's talking. It's I've never not had the conversation. Like I came on here. I'm clear we've had discussions, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so I know that, Carson's not about to come on here and be a conservative, but I'm coming on the podcast because we need to talk about some stuff. You know what I'm saying? It's like
yeah, yeah,
I am always open to talking to people on any platform. But that's the thing, we gotta talk, So a lot of people want to invite you on just to, like you said, ad hominem and
yeah,
bolster their popularity and their influence. Like, ooh, I got at that conservative. Look at him. It's like that's not getting us anywhere, guys. Uh, I'm sure, like I said, you can learn something from anybody. You learn learn something from somebody in prison. You can learn something from somebody in the pews. You name it, and that's kind of like my philosophy when I'm out here, man. Is what can I hear? And then I can sit down and talk to them and be like, okay, this is what I believe based on, because you were talking about that. It's like, I've, my sister is very passionate and she's more passionate about universal health care because she's had a daughter who's been in the hospital pretty much in and out since she was a baby,
mm,
so that stacks up, bills stack up. But is the solution universal health care, or is the solution, um, um taking away the privatization of hospitals and medicine,
mm,
and preventing them from not being sued and stuff like that, right? It's like your real issue is the price, and the reason the price is like that is because of the policies, not because we need more money pumped into it. Because if you just give, it's kind of like student loans. The reason why schools are so expensive, and that's why people don't understand, it's like, man, why did schools all of a sudden just keep going up and up and up? Because schools here, what politicians are saying, we're giving you guaranteed loans. So if you can't afford to go to school, we'll just give you the money to go, no matter the price. And the schools are like, oh, for sure. So they just got money. They got blank checks. So we're just gonna up our prices and cash in on that. And that's what I'm saying when we see money thrown at issues when it's not really the solution to the problem. I get it. It could be a temporary fix. It could be something that could save somebody's life and things like that. But I'm looking at it like if you want that short term solution, people volunteer, step up, let's make it happen. Make that voluntary. Because the Bible also talks about, as much as we talk about giving to the least of these, he also talks about when you give with a free heart, give it with a caring heart. Do not give grudgingly, whether it's tithes or whatever. So if you giving grudgingly to the government or to anybody because that's something that you feel like that you do on your own time, then you also run into that issue. And so as much the Constitution was created for moral and religious people. The more we shy away from that in this country and get away from that, the less and less the Constitution is going to help anything going on here. And I'm just trying to get people back to that, like back to that, to where we can, um, back to the point where kids can go out and play, man. Like get back to shaming people. Like it's like we've accepted too much, I think, as the church. Like we've
I'm sorry.
accepted too
Did you
much.
say get back to shaving people?
Man, get back to shaming people. Think about this.
All right,
Think about this.
Topher, man, you are raw, dog. Like you are just like you gonna say it. Okay, okay.
Think about this.
People don't hate me
Wh-
because I
When
provided the platform. Okay.
the reason I say that, because remember so when prisons were first formed, where were prisons located?
I don't have a clue.
They was jailed in the square of the city. Reason being is people saw you and you brought shame to yourself. Think about people now when they go to jail. We don't even know where the jails are located. Oftentimes they're forgotten and their sins are just whatever. We forgot what that dude did, and they're not shamed. They're
People that go to jail are terribly shamed.
nah.
When they come when you come out of jail, it doesn't matter how you could have served every minute of the time that society has told you need to serve. When you come out, you're a convict,
Well, no,
and
sister,
people are gonna view you like, oh man,
not the black community.
this guy been in jail, right? So there is a definitely like strong shaming and perpetual shaming. Perpetual shaming of prisoners when they come home. There's certain jobs that you can't get if you went to prison.
Well, yeah,
And depending on your crime, you can't vote.
well, that too. Yeah, you shouldn't be able to vote based on a certain
Is
crime.
so
I would.
it depending on depending on your crime, you could never, I don't know, shoot a deer.
So
You can never own a, so
so
there's a lot of stuff that come with going to prison. I can't let you go on that one. We
so
can't end it on that.
I think we're what you're getting at is when I say shame, I mean when you see somebody that's committed a crime and you see the life they go through, it makes other people not want to do it. Has the way we prison people prevented a lot of people from going to jail? No. We've seen an uptick in people going to jail, or it's been stabilized. That tells me that there's no shame in that. And that's why I'm saying on the forefront. Now on the back end, yeah, you get screwed hard. You get, I mean,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
some of these jails are
It's a problem.
tragic, right? It's atrocious. And some of these freedoms and your ability to move. So that's why I'm saying, like, the shame, not the consequence or the everything that comes after, but the idea. Because like I said, some of these people get jail time, come back, they heroes. You know what I'm saying? We'll celebrate, we'll throw a whole house party from a person getting out from doing a bid. Person graduated from Harvard, they were like, oh man, pat on the back and say good
Oh
job. You know
man.
what I'm saying? We
Yeah.
see it, bro, and we have to talk
I
about
can't
it.
I mean, when
We
somebody who's been gone come back, you get happy. I mean, it happens. I can't say that does not happen. That when
so
someone comes home from jail, people not happy to see them. They don't throw parties and things. What you just created, I'm gonna tell you this. You just created a whole nother show. I'm gonna do a whole segment on shame because I think there's something there. I think there's something that we need to talk about there. Wow. How
and
did you?
not like shame in antagonizing way, but shame as in um you can't throw the rock and hide your hand. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't want people to just be like every time they walk up, look at that chick over there that had that child outside of marriage. Every time you walk, I don't want that type of shame. But the Bible talks about. I remember Paul was writing to I think Church of Corinthians, one of the churches. Don't quote me on it. I'm trying to paraphrase it, but he was talking about how one of the members of the church, I think, committed pedophilia or something like that, or did some sexual act. I forget what it was.
I think
And
you're
the
talking
church,
about when he was sleeping with his father's wife, I believe.
yeah.
Yeah,
Slept with his father's wife, and he was saying people that are not even in the church wouldn't
wouldn't
associate
do
with
it.
this guy,
Yeah.
but
Mhm.
y'all are still inviting him in as if he did nothing that was just abhorrently wrong. And that's what I'm saying. Like, we have to treat them like we have to give you that time, right? You know what I'm saying? We have to say, okay, you did this. We need to make like, hey, that's a no. We don't do this because we're more people. We God believe in God fearing people. This is no, right? And then bring them back in, get them. But we don't even do that anymore as church. It's just like, come as you are. We don't care what you got going on. Everybody gets to church, but make sure you put your money in the tithes. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm saying. Like, that type of shame, like, that's biblical, and that's because just like there is biblical righteousness, right? I mean, biblical righteousness, biblical jealousy. Like, jealousy is not a sin. Jealousy is only there's righteous jealousy. Like, just like God is jealous because he has, you can be jealous. If a man hollers at your wife, that's your wife. You have the right to be jealous because that's your wife. You can't be jealous of somebody else's wife because you don't have the right to be jealous of something else that person is doing. You know what I'm saying? So I think there's a righteous way to shame people that we have not utilized, that I think is a really great tool, because we have listened to the world when it comes to bullying and all that type of stuff. So to me personally, I think I think it'd be a cool topic for you to tackle one day, man. I make
Yeah, I
sure I
mean, I got
throw
to
it
think
in.
about that. I'm hoping that you put something out on Instagram or something to help us. Tell us what you mean by righteous shame, because I'm gonna be getting text messages all night. Like, what the heck? What's going on, Carson? Listen, I think I think one of the things that some people who are watching this might not know is that I knew Chris before all of this, but
Yeah.
when we were in the military, and so I've experienced Chris before rap before he blew up, before he was known. And again, one of the things I'm seeing is the same Chris, right? I'm seeing the same lover of truth, trying to figure it out, trying to constantly pursue what he believes to be right. So, I mean, that's, in my opinion, it's been nothing but love shown from Chris from this whole kind of setup. We got Kava in the chat too. This is the whole gym crew. We got the whole gym crew from DLI.
Oh man, yes sir.
When Chris was showing us up on the pull-ups, man, we getting up there dying, trying to keep up, man. Get the band to help me hold my legs. So I mean, we had a good time. But thank you so much for coming on. Tell the people how they can kind of keep up with you and what you got going on, and then we'll close it out.
Yeah, so if y'all want to follow me, it's Topher Town Music on all platforms, or you can go to my website, tophertown.com. That's TOPHERTOWN.com. All my music and everything is linked there. If you're just too lazy, then all you got to do is Google search or search on any musical platform, Topher, TOPHER, and you will find what you're looking for.
Man, thank you so much for coming on, man. And hopefully we can keep the lines of communication open. It was great getting back and having a conversation with you, man. So be blessed, stay safe, and tell the family I said hey.
Yes, sir, man. You too, man. Appreciate it.
All right. See y'all later.